different sports and organizations that reach out to me and say, Miss Serrano, we want to use your field. We're crowded at La Puente. We are crowded in AYSO. We are crowded. We want to use your track. Can we go walk on your track? We want to use your tennis courts. They're just a wonderful outlet for our community. And I know that liability is always a concern, but there's ways. I mean, everybody has to have insurance just to be on our campus. So the liability to me is it's a mute thing because everybody's covered, whether we're partnering with someone or our own insurance. So the goal is to maximize green spaces. I'd like to know how much of our green spaces are utilized. I would say maybe 30 to 45%, but I don't do the facilities use permit, so I don't know the data, but I'd like to know about how much of our green spaces are being utilized, and I'd like to increase that. Mr. Roy Chowdhury, do you know about how much, or Mr. Dr. Jimenez?
Thank you, Madam President. For that particular item, I'll hand it over to Mr. Roy Chowdhury. Hopefully, he can provide some estimates. Mr. Roy Chowdhury?
Um, Good evening, Superintendent, Board President. We'll have to go back and calculate the green space because right now we have the data for the Civic Center. It does identify what space the requester is using the facility for, but we'll have to analyze the data and segregate the data between classroom versus the green space.
Thank you. Yes. And so I know that some people use them for their schools, their after school programs, right? So I'm not saying the classrooms, I'm saying the outdoor spaces because sometimes you'll drive by a school, they have a beautiful, I mean, Grandview has a beautiful grass out there. And I'm like, I could see teams here. They're fighting over at La Puente Park. They can't get enough. And once again, all these recreational outlets are critical to students' mental health and their academic process. So it's just kind of working hand in hand. But I want to open it up to my team members for discussion. Anybody would like to contribute? Mr. De La Torre?
I agree with you. I do think in this time of age, I know a lot of our kids, they're constantly on their devices, and we need to give them an opportunity, an outlet where they can actually be out there and exercise, run, be active um, for their well-being. So I know the maintenance of these fields is costly sometimes, but if we can somehow reach out to like AYSO, some little leagues or flag football, something that that these organizations can come over and utilize them, and just have the opportunity for the kids to run, to exercise. I would love to see that. Um, I know when we think of green space too, just having an opportunity, just a community garden or something where they can actually go and grow their own crops. I know it was mentioned previously. Uh, I think we can do that too. We can partner up with Lowe's or Home Depot or somebody where where they can come over. Boys and Girls Club, Boys and Girls Scouts. They do projects too where they can come over and build these areas that to grow our own vegetables and just have a nice peaceful just even if it's just flowers, just a place where a kid can just go and sit down and we can invite nature into our school sites.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Ms. Quinones?
Dr. Jimenez, are you aware of other school districts that are utilizing their green space for gardening and then utilizing that gardening for their nutritional needs? Like lettuce and tomatoes and all that stuff. So we don't spend a lot of money on food because we have students learn how to grow them. So it's a win-win situation.
Yes, and some of the conferences I know that the team and I have gone to, there's been schools, award-winning schools that have received, whether it was a school to watch or an award for their excellence, programs like that, where they're trying to replicate a farm to table concept where they are growing their own food in their school garden and working with nutritional services. They are then serving that food in their local cafeteria. So obviously, this is on a small scale. In order to do this district-wide, you would really need to scale up big time to do something like that. But it's more on a smaller scale that they're just doing it with their local school.
I just want to say that I've been actually advocating for that for 4 years. I did a whole presentation on the Center for Regenerative Studies and how we can increase green spaces. And then we had the towers that we had talked about, which is like I forgot what it's called, hydroponics, where you just have these towers that is cost effective, space effective. It uses a lot less resources. And 4 years later, like, I don't want to be rude, I have yet to see that come into fruition. And this is not rocket science. Once again, I had my finger on the pulse. 4 years later, we're still bringing it up, right? And when we have these threats to taking away food money from students, it is ever more relevant. And so you have school districts like Rancho Cucamonga that they have a little metal bed outside of every classroom, and every classroom, like in elementary, is in charge of a different produce, and then all those different produces go to their cafeteria. Okay, that's a great model. Now, I brought this up many times. Lopez Urban Farm, they have an urban farm in Pomona, which is, and they partner with Pomona Unified at their school. This is one of the best practice models that I've ever researched in my 40 years of life. And I keep bringing it to us, not because I am anything great. They're great. They're amazing. Evidence-based practice. And at Lopez Urban Farm, not only do they have a farm, it's not a desolate garden like people see, gardens that are just not taken care of. They have programming there. They have yoga. They have crocheting classes. They have a free fridge. Every Saturday, anybody in the community can go and pick fresh organic produce. I encourage you all to visit Lopez Urban Farm. That is what we should be doing in districts across the United States, particularly working class communities. Thank you for bringing that up. Additional comments? Mr. Latorre?
Thank you. I had the opportunity to visit a restaurant in Boyle Heights. It's called Meatball Grill, and I'm not advertising, but what they do is they actually partner up with White Memorial, the hospital. Adjacent to it, they purchased some homes, and so what they did is that they did a community garden. And so when you go there, if you get the opportunity to go, they have a lot of vegetables, corn. They grow everything there, and they actually partner up with them, where they're actually using some of those products. So in the community can also go there and grow their own crops and so forth. And I know we have the old Valley Continuation School, and I know it's a hill, but it's like I don't see why we can't utilize it, get a tractor, and just and start growing. I know we just recently, I think it was Farmers Day, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. But I noticed that like on social media, there was a lot of people talking the importance about growing our crops. But just having the kids the opportunity to go there and say, maybe it was something that, that they're having, say, I helped it grow. I just think it's beautiful and phenomenal. So, and they use a lot of these things also for teas, like herbs, like hierbabuena and chamomile. So, I mean, they're growing all these little things. And I think we can do that here too in our district. And it's utilize it. It's green. It's helping the environment. And I don't think it would cost a lot, other than maybe have a security guard with the gate, come in the morning, open it up, and then at the just before dawn, like we see, I live in Hacienda Heights, and we have an officer that goes in and locks a park ranger that goes over and locks the gate. I don't know how we can do that. I mean, it's still within their contract hours. Maybe one of our officers can just pass by and just lock it. I don't know. I would love to see something like that in our district. Thank you.
And just for reference, in the city of Pomona, they've actually done a really good job with the gardens for being a working class community. So there was one school site that it was on a hill, and they would rent out the lots to local families. And those families would have a system of accessing it. So you could either do the public route like Lopez Urban Farm, or you could do the 4-lot practice, which has also been used by local school sites. I'd also like to advocate for these green spaces, like the tennis. I always hear that people want to use the tennis courts at La Puente High School. Can we please begin the conversation with the city of La Puente and do a partnership with them where they're going to cover the liabilities, because they've expressed that interest multiple times. Our tracks, I'd like to have our tracks open for people to walk on our tracks. I wish I could just go to a track and walk. That's such a good outlet for our community. Now, when you say growing your own food, evidence-based practice shows that when you grow your own food, particularly as children, you have a higher chance of eating vegetables. This is science, this is facts, right? So if we want our kids to eat more vegetables, then by having them grow their food, that is a direct way to do it. Another thing, so we had this bag here, this guy, and I'm gonna give it back also. I think National Championship Sports, I think that's what it's called. They came in, they gave us this giant bag of awards that they got, which not to be rude, I'm not concerned with the awards. I'm concerned with the outcomes and what you're producing with the students. And so why don't we invite this organization to come out and check out our quiz property, since we want to build fields there, right? Don't we want to build fields on quiz? If we have 2 or 3 organizations that are fighting to give us money to build fields, why would we turn someone away? Why would we say this or that? We'll say, no, we have plenty of properties where you can do this at, and we want to leverage that, right? So I would encourage my team to be intelligent and make intelligent choices where we're not pushing away resources, where we're leveraging those opportunities. And so for this company that also wants to build a field here, man, let's go explore quiz. Let's go explore all these other options of green spaces that we can maximize here. Any other comments on this? Actually, California Elementary, can we please put a garden on California Elementary? It is a freaking eyesore on the corner there that is just an empty lot gated off. For 4 years. It could have been a garden. I advocated for 4 years and it still has not been a garden. My goodness. And this, I'm not going to use it. This is not for me. This is for the kids in the community. So do we have any additional comments on maximizing green spaces? So when I say maximizing green spaces, I would like to reduce the barriers for people to be able to rent out. So for example, if you're a team, if you're just a recreational team and you want to rent one of our schools for your practices for 3 months, that costs like $10,000. Does anybody here have $10,000 for something you volunteer to do? No. Okay. And so what we should be doing, the right thing to do, is decrease those barriers and say, what is accessible? What can these people actually afford so we can actually use it? Right. And now I would challenge and say, you know what, instead of us maintaining these properties, guess what? You guys pay to maintain them. If you want to use them, now we're saving money. Now, if we want to charge them and make profit, charge them percentages. How many students in our district? If you have a lot of students on your team in our district, you get a rebate. We want to partner, right? It doesn't, I think those costs should be coming down to make it accessible. And really, we want them to pay for the maintenance. So we're even. Opening it up to soccer and football and cheer and softball and baseball and all those beautiful sports out there, tennis and volleyball, right? Let's do a call out, a mass call. Hey, organizations, we're opening up these processes. We want to maximize our team. Our new board is very progressive and we want to maximize our green spaces because we understand that impacts students' mental health and it impacts their academic progress. So we're doing a call. Hey, everybody, we want you to use our spaces. As a matter of fact, we want your kids to see themselves in our schools. We want your parents to visit our schools because that's going to increase the chances of those kids coming to our schools. This is a business practice as well, right? So moving forward, does anybody want to add to this? Mr. La Torre?
Just real quick, I first of all, I want to thank the sports organizations that came last time. I appreciate the fact that they had some interest in investing in our district. The only thing is, I do think we need to have our legal, lawyers, contracts be written where we benefit and we're not tied. Sometimes, I don't know what the plan is, but I think just to protect our district too and have the opportunity to also use those fields, I think we need to kind of like negotiate. And like I said, I don't know all these things, but I'm sure we have in our team people that can handle that. They can sit down and just have everything written down so we feel that it's beneficial for everyone. So yeah, instead of having these fields empty or we wait another 10 years because we don't have the money to fix them. So it is concerning. We know Wedgwood, it's a brand new schools being built. It's going to be gorgeous, but then to look on the side and just have empty fields, with come on. I mean, we need to do something about it too. So quiz, another thing, I know we didn't have enough funding to proceed. And if it's not these organizations, reach out to Major League Baseball. I know in East LA, the Dodgers are very, and that sometimes they support communities where they come over, they do the fields, they do the scoreboards, and it's free of charge and it's for the community. So I would like to see maybe some conversations if we can reach out to them. I'm sure they would love to advertise their sport or their team, and it's a win-win for us too because our children and our adults too can probably use these fields. Thank you.
Mr. Kwok?
Let me just say this from a point of order, right? I think that the whole point about the Little League baseball fields, that's going to be addressed in a different item, but I didn't want to interrupt what you had to say. But I say that to you respectfully. But I want to address some of the issues that have been raised regarding this, all right? You know, you talk about growing vegetables, right? I mean, conceptually, who's going to argue with that, right? But then it grows to the point where we're in the rental business of local farming. And then the other thing is that, you know, whenever you're dealing with consumables, what happens if somebody gets sick over something like this, right? I mean, there's a lot of permutations to this, right? So I'm just saying, let's at least be mindful of this. And the part that I thought we were talking about here were the issues about these local youth groups that say, hey, they need practice visit, which I totally get, right? But it assumes a factual predicate that I'm not sure it exists, which is, are we denying them the use, right? Because I've always remembered that we've allowed, like, girls softball, never had an issue, right? I remember they were using Cedar Lane as an example, right? If they wanted to use a field to go and do that, I wouldn't have an issue with respect to that, but I've never heard that before, right? So I don't want this to be an answer in search of a problem regarding that, right? But remember also that, you know, we're dealing with maintenance issues as well, so we have to be aware of that. And the rest I'll just save with respect to the baseball field on that, and then I'll discuss it when it's actually relevant, especially regarding quiz that was mentioned. Thank you, Madam President. I yield back and return it to your capable hands.
Thank you so much. And so when we're talking about maximizing green spaces, we are exploring the different sports. And even though there is an agenda item to discuss a Wedgeworth Fields in particular, there's no need for us to go looking at the LA Dodgers and all these. It sure would be great, right? It'll be great. But what you're saying is that's a potential. We have a definite people right here that are ready to invest. So why would we push them away? Why would we pit them against each other? That's not intelligent. That's unintelligent. We want to maximize and leverage those resources. And so, yes, this is relevant. The second speaker that came that was not in connection to the historical Wedgeworth conversation, fields, yes, we can let them use another field. We can let them maximize that green space. We are the board. We don't have limitations. We get to be creative and innovative. And so sporting agencies, you know, different things. Now, when we say, I never heard that there's a need, well, were you here, sir, when the president of the La Puente Little League came here as a personal testimony of the need here in our community? Because there's a lot more of that. I get calls all the time that there's a need, okay? And so another thing is like, we have to be mindful of people getting hurt or eating something rotten, right? I appreciate that mindfulness, right? But there's also liability, right? Which is more than a mindfulness. That's the law. And so these two examples that I gave of Lopez Urban Farm and the Garden with Lots, those were through Pomona Unified School District. And if Pomona Unified could do it, you better believe we could do it. And they went through the lawyers, they went through the liability. They wouldn't move forward without that. Okay, so that's called precedent. It's been done. We can do it. And I'm not interested in creating more barriers. I'm increasing and decreasing barriers. And so, Dr. Jimenez, I'd like to have an executive summary on the pay scale for renting our green spaces, all of them, whether it's just small, medium, large, it's a tiny thing. I want to know the pay scale, because when I go to a restaurant, I want to see the prices on that wall. And when you don't give me the prices, I'm like, how are you charging me different? Because you maybe don't like me, or because I'm really cute and you have lack confidence? Yeah, people do that. People charge people different, okay? And so I want to be clear as to what are the prices. And from people that reach out to me, multiple little leagues, I feel safe enough to reach out to me because they know I actually care, right? So they have said, Ms. Serrano, it's extremely expensive to rent there. That's why the president of the La Puente Little League came herself to say, we have multiple teams, none of us could afford it. Okay, so there is a need. I'm hearing it directly. And so we want to maximize the green spaces. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a great thing. Evidence-based practice shows that green-based spaces help people's mental health, not just children, the community. And so as a person that has my finger on the pulse, I'm challenging us to move forward, to be innovative. Okay, so I think that's where we're at with that, unless we have additional comments.
I have just a quick,
Yes, Mr. Kwok?
thank you. So with respect to the community garden, what you just said actually proves my point regarding that. The other one with respect to the La Puente Little League, I actually heard what Monique Dominguez had to say. And so I was wondering why that was the case, that if she was turned away, right? So what I'm saying is that traditionally, I'm not aware of that ever happening, right? But instead of jumping to a conclusion, I've asked the district and said, is this true, right? So then, then we'll go from there. But obviously, we don't want to go ahead and be an obstructionist to these kids so that they have a place to go ahead and practice. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. We heard it straight from the horse's mouth that this is a need, that this is a barrier, that they're inaccessible. Okay, that's proof, human proof. So I think we got the point here. We're going to move forward to the next item. That was just a discussion. 702